Thank you.
Richard Drax.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It would be inept if I didn't praise our Ukrainian friends and allies who are fighting with such courage against such appalling odds, with more than the kit we've given them and the training that they've got. And it really is awe-inspiring and humbling to see what they're doing, and of course their population and their president, who spoke so movingly here. Can I also praise and thank the members of the Defence Committee on which I sit, and all of the committee's members do a fantastic job, including the right honourable members for Worley and North Durham, who really are passionate on the other side of the fence for the defence of our country and for ensuring that our defence is properly paid for. I'd also like to praise the Treasury Minister for the Defence too, because we've had many dealings together, and I know he's an honourable man with great integrity, and he wants to do the best he can for our armed forces, and I hope obviously he'll take all the things we've said back to his boss. In 1982, I remember, or thereabouts, 81, 82, I remember being shown our battlefield locations, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was a soldier at the time, and we were taken on a top-secret mission and shown, this is where you will fight the Russians if they come west. When I asked the general in charge how long we had to live, he said, upon moment of contact, when the artillery falls in your position, you have about 40 seconds. So I thought, well, that's time to say a few prayers, and then that would be it. But we all felt this was surreal. Yes, we were professional soldiers, but to us it was a day out. This couldn't possibly happen, could it? No. 40 years later, we face a Russian bear, an aggressive bear, that's taking on this democratic country and taking it over and subjugating it. And I fear, I think like many colleagues and many of those I've spoken to, that they will not stop there. Mr. Putin's dream is to have the Soviet Republic back in its original shape. My fear is he'll go south to the non-NATO countries next, based on the fact that we've done nothing militarily except offer military help to the invasion of Ukraine. I'm not saying we should get involved in Ukraine. I think the stance that we've adopted is the right one. And obviously, if they put, as I've said before, one step into a NATO country, that's when we've got to fight. But the point I'm making, with what? Now, the cupboard is threadbare, in my humble opinion. And I've sat in the Defence Committee and served my Queen and country for 9 years to know what's happened to our armed forces. And I'm particularly concerned about the Army. The Navy, and mentioned was by the Right Honourable Member for, forgive me, Ross. Thank you very much indeed. Mentioned my esteemed grandfather, Admiral Drax, who sadly has passed away many years ago. I'm sure if he was alive today, he'd be in this chamber right now, or being certainly kept out by force, to tell the Minister that the Royal Navy, the senior service, as I was always told by him and my father, who also served in the Royal Navy, that it needed more ships and more equipment and all the rest of it. And I absolutely concur with that. But the Army, my concern here, and this is the evidence I get back from those who are serving, including many sons of friends who are currently serving, that what's happened is that the battalions have been hollowed out. They've been hollowed out to save cap badges, because that would be politically embarrassing if we saw regiments again being amalgamated or disappearing. This is quite unacceptable if, God forbid, the Russian bear puts a foot into NATO countries and our young men and women are sent to fight yet again in effect, not a world war, certainly a huge war in Europe. Now, a full battalion, a proper manned battalion, is come about through years of history of fighting and experience and so forth. To hollow it out now for political expediency is totally unacceptable.
My friend,
I'd be very delighted to give way to my gallant and honourable friend.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When I joined my battalion in 1969 in Bahrain, it was 750 strong. When I commanded it in 1991, it was 525. Now it's less than that. It's still called a battalion.
Absolutely. Honourable friend makes my point. Lastly, before I sit down, I might just refer to my honourable friend from Henley, who touched on tanks. I think it's worth pointing out, don't be fooled. One hears that tanks are a thing of the past, that no longer they're vulnerable to anti-missiles and so forth, which, to the Ukrainians' great credit, they are shown. But one has to remember that the Ukrainians are in a defensive position, in trenches, fighting a defensive battle against armour that's coming at them. It is fortunate, in my view, that the Russians are proving themselves inept in using their armour, and their armour is vulnerable to this sort of defence. But where the tank is vital and still will be needed, despite the fact we've only got 2 regiments, as I understand it, left, is if you have an offensive operation and defence requires an offensive element or an offence on itself, you will need a vehicle armoured with a big gun to hold ground. Helicopters can't do that. Drones can't do that. But a tank can. So all I would say in ending is don't forget the poor old tank. It still has a place in the battlefield, although I quite accept that warfare is changing. And finally, if I can just make a point very quickly to my right-hand friend on the front bench, touch on the special boat service and their aquatic centre. These are our special forces. They want a proper aquatic centre. Can they please have one?
Andrew Bowen.
Madam Deputy Speaker.